The English version of Shadowverse Evolve released about 2 months ago, and the competitive circuit for the game has already kicked off. For those who are unfamiliar, Shadowverse Evolve is a new physical card game based on Cygames' Shadowverse CCG, made in collaboration with Bushiroad, the company behind Weiss Schwarz and Cardfight Vanguard. With most games starting physical and then going digital later, seeing how they handle the reverse has been a neat experience so far, but I do have some complaints with it. Maybe that'll be a video for another day, so if you'd be interested in seeing that, why not leave a comment down below, and while you're down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel for more card game content, and follow me over on Twitch for live gameplay commentary. So unlike most TCGs, the competitive circuit for Evolve doesn't have regional tournaments open to all participants. Instead, players must first win an invitation to a regional by participating in a shop qualifier, essentially a mini-regional held by local tournament stores. I would participate in 2 of these qualifiers in the same weekend, but there was a slight catch. Not only was the deck I was taking one I had no practice with, but I hadn't even played the game at all prior to this, save for some test games with a friend using starter decks. In card games, I pretty much always play with a self-imposed handicap. To me, there's no point in doing well in a tournament if it's not with something I truly enjoy playing, because in the age-old words of Reggie Fils-Aimé,
if it's not fun, why bother? If it's not a battle, where's the fun?
This was an extreme circumstance, however. Usually before going into a tournament with stakes like this, I'll spend the weeks and months leading up to it grinding nothing but the deck I intend to play, in friendlies and local tournaments. Here I was essentially banking on the general unfamiliarity with the game due to it only being a month old, the natural surprise factor of playing a lesser known deck, and of course over a decade's worth of experience playing TCGs. Poorly. And with that, the first of 2 qualifiers began. My first match was against Amulet Haven, and it went about as well as one might expect from my first ever tournament game, with a lot of floundering with missed effects, poor calculations, and the like. In reality, however, the game was decided from the very first turn. See, prior to the event, someone online told me that Dirt Room doesn't really need Bellringer Angel, as it already matches well against aggro decks, and should focus on improving exactly this matchup. But I like having the safety net of additional low-cost draw power in the deck, and the ping from the Evo can be nice in a pinch. Plus, I mean, come on. But in this game, my opening hand, even after Mulligan, had nothing going for it besides playing Ding Dong on 1, and it was immediately banished by a Blackened Scripture, leaving me unable to get anything going and be overrun by tokens. Losing the first round found me immediately at the lowest table in the event, matched up against Ramp Dragon, which is considered to be the best deck in the Set 1 format. I don't normally care about things like table placement, but it would be kind of a confidence breaker to get steamrolled by what appeared to be a newbie playing the top deck in the game at the literal bottom rungs of the ladder. Luckily for me, however, the tables were turned in this game. My opponent ended up drawing all of their high-cost cards, and their one hope of using Ayla to ramp was met with a banish from Price of Magic. The game was over in under 10 minutes, and part of me wanted to feel bad about possibly ruining some Timmy's evening, until I saw that one of the cards that he bricked on was Lucifer, and all of my sympathy vanished. Speaking of Lucifer, I was actually playing a copy in my deck, and despite being in my opening hand in all but 2 games I played over this weekend, I ended up never playing it a single time. It seems like neutral legendaries really just being additional legendaries for Dragon is still true, though we'll end up making good use later on of one that I used to replace the second copy of Lucifer that I refused to buy. Round 3 would see me once again matched against Ramp Dragon, but this time one of those hardcore tournament grinders who doesn't know what any cards not in the top 2 decks in the game do. By this point I was getting into the groove of things, and while I did take some damage early due to playing a slower deck, I was actually able to put myself in a position to win, even after eating a hit from Evolved Forte. But I made one critical mistake. I forgot one of the most fundamental rules that remain consistent between digital and physical versions of the game, which is that an evolved follower inherently gains the Rush ability. I forget to attack with my Ancient Alchemist, leaving him with a follower on the board that could clear my single ward, and with no cards in hand, he top decks another Forte and evolves it to end the game. Round 4 was the last round of Swiss, so I decided to stick it out even though I was unlikely to make top cut. I was matched up against Aggro Nightmare and could finally put to the test how well the deck matched up against these aggressive decks. Once again, I took a bit of damage early on, but then something massive happened. I played a Runic Guardian with its Earthright effect, turning it into a ward that the opponent wasn't able to easily remove. Then, on the following turn, Gabriel would buff it even more while also allowing it to swing for a massive 8 damage. Another 8 damage the following turn left the opponent scrambling for answers, even after being able to finally clear the Guardian and heal a bit with back-to-back Alucard drops. With just enough PP to drop and evolve an Ancient Alchemist and summon 2 Golems, 2 pings to the face would leave me with a 2-2 record for a 12th place finish. The second qualifier would not go as smoothly as the first, in pretty much every way. You see, Bushiroad TCGs use an app called Bushinavi to help streamline the process of running tournaments, allowing for easy registration, check-in, and match reporting without the need for paper match slips or having to flag down a judge or scorekeeper. By all accounts, events should go infinitely more smoothly compared to other games that I'm used to, and yet this qualifier would end up starting nearly a full hour late, and every single round went into overtime because players could not follow the most simple of instructions. Shadowverse games are fast enough that a full 2 rounds could have been played to completion before this tournament even began, but what can you do? Finally, after all this time, I was matched up against Banner Sword, and true enough, the matchup wasn't particularly difficult. That said, I did end up making a couple of mistakes that would end up costing me the game. Due to both being uninformed and inattentive, I used the price of magic to remove a Steel-clad Knight, expecting to get chipped by a Quick Blader for 1 next turn, not realizing that it could evolve and hit for 3 instead. This would end up snowballing into me needing to burn my Demon Flame mages early to try and recover, and not having the third one available to clear a board of Otohime's bodyguards. This was actually the only game all weekend where I actually considered playing Lucifer, but there was no guarantee the base form would be enough to buy me a turn, and not being able to attack Otohime with the evolved form would make it useless. After going the whole game without it, a top-decked Royal Banner buffing the tokens to 2 would end up sealing my fate. The second round would be against my friend, who waited until the day before the tournament to decide to buy the cards for his deck, only to find that the shop had been completely cleaned out of its Swordcraft singles. Seeing as he would be 0-2 after this game and the tournament was taking much longer than it should, we agreed that we'd drop and get dinner once I ended up losing again, as an X2 record with a loss in round 1 wouldn't be enough to squeeze into the top 8. Well, imagine my surprise when my round 3 opponent is able to drop a Cerberus on curve and evolve her on the next turn using the Coco tokens to buff her to 9 attack, with the second Cerberus lying in wait for the next turn if the first was dealt with. Perhaps this is some kind of weird karma for that Gabriel play in the other qualifier? Either way, I dropped from the tournament with a 1-2 record and got a nice fatty bowl of ramen afterwards. All in all, I'd say this experience was a good one, and I got a better understanding of the flow of playing Shadowverse Evolve. I'm glad that I ultimately decided to go with Dirt instead of D-Shift, as the flexibility in how you can approach the game with your golems feels suited to my playstyle. Not to mention I love decks and TCGs that allow me to spam a bunch of tokens. But that's for another time. By the way, did you know I went 7 whole games across 2 tournaments, somehow forgetting the fact that Alchemist discounted my tokens?